What if you had an FPS game, but instead of guns, your weapon is magic? That is what my game is all about, bringing the true first-person movement shooter experience, but also a true magic fantasy experience at the same time. But of course, in order to do that, we need some spells. So I decided to brainstorm some ability ideas with Trixie, and we came up with a whole long list to work with based on the different elements that are going to be in the game. And basically how that works is you harness your abilities from the different planets in the solar system. So we have solar abilities, which branches down into fire and solar storm. Then we have lunar abilities, which branches out into gravity and darkness. Then we have earth abilities, which breaks down into air and light. But then my clinically diagnosed ADHD started kicking in, and before you know it, I had 3 abilities that basically have nothing to do with any of our abilities on our list. Basically, what happened was I bought some VFX off the marketplace and just picked the first one that seemed to fit one of the elements or specializations in the game, which is Firestorm. So I took this orange lightning strike particle system thingy and bound it to my lethal button. Yeah, that's what I called it. I changed that. And after doing so, I found it to be lackluster. I mean, the animation was dope, and I feel like I did a good job with the sound, but it just felt like something wasn't quite right. So I decided to move on to the next spell and come back to it later, as I really just wanted to have 3 spells down so I can really get a general feel of how casting multiple abilities would, well, you know, feel. So I figured I'll get these out and come back to the lightning, but don't worry, we'll come back and fine tune things. So you'll see how we made it way better later on in the video. So the next spell came from this interesting VFX that had an upward draft type of thing, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have some ability that launches you or your enemies or teammates into the air? That's super unique and not copied from Horizon and Apex at all. Look, I like playing Horizon, okay? She's fun. Plus, this ability offers a ton of utility and is super versatile, so it adds some really fun gameplay and tactics that you can execute. Plus, it still fits one of the specializations in the game, which is wind magic, so I'm not straying that far off. Anyways, after that, I figured I'd throw in something a little bit more vanilla, a fireball, but a purple fireball, because Flavor Flav. I mean, this one's pretty straightforward. It's just a fireball that's, you know, purple. Now, I sort of struggled thinking of where this one would fit in exactly, but now that I think about it, one of the specializations or elements that we came up with is gravity magic, which when I think gravity, I think purple. And one of our abilities is basically a star surge that you launch, and when it detonates over time, it sucks enemies into it. So I thought to myself, what if you could launch this star surge purple fireball thingy, and it would act like a normal fireball would, but you can press the button again to detonate it, causing it to explode when you want it to, and from there it can do the sucky sucky. Now that I think about it, that's kind of like Orisa's old ability from Overwatch. Make sure to give this video a like for originality. Please help me. All right, now that I had my 3 abilities and got to play around with them a bit, I still had that same problem. It just felt like something was missing. Then I remembered something that is in many games with Magic, and even in Apex, spell previews. How this works is when you first press a button for some spells, it doesn't just launch it off all willy-nilly. Instead, it will pull up a spell preview so that you can accurately line up the ability. Then you left click or press the button again, and only then will it actually launch. So I started to get to work, but I wasn't very sure how to go about implementing it. Do I make a custom Niagara spell effect system that I have no idea how to make, by the way? Or do I do it by spawning in a normal actor with a static mesh with a transparent material attached? Well, I figured, you know, I gotta learn how to make VFX at some point. I might as well start now. Let me tell you, this was some of the most annoying shit ever. I could not figure out how to make this work the way I wanted to save my life. At first, I thought I'd make a fancy spinning, ringing, ring vortex thingy-majig, but I couldn't even get it to move correctly. And eventually, I just settled on making a single particle. And after hours of trying to figure out how to actually make it lay flat on the ground instead of face me from all angles like some weird creepo stalker. Seriously though, why does it do that? But I still have this problem where it sort of just kind of is flashy and glitchy looking. But for now, look, that'll have to do. I'll smooth things out later, because my ADHD is not handling this right now. But even after implementing the magic, everything still felt like it was missing something. It still didn't feel like you were actually casting, which is super important to me. I want to capture that feeling so bad. The most critical aspect of this game is making sure that you feel like a high octane battle mage that is actually casting their spell. I want you to feel the spell. So I tried looking up other games with casting systems by asking ChatGPT of some other FPS Magic games, watched a few of those videos just to see how the casting looks and appears, and I also did my own little research by actually going and playing Elder Scrolls Online, which felt pretty good in first person, but it still felt like like it was missing something, but I still think it's good reference. I also really like what I saw in Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. It's a really weird name, but hey, you know, you do you. And I also really like Lichdom Battle Mage. I don't know if I'm saying that right. They all had aspects that would feel good as casting, but again, they all still seem to be lacking something. So after hours of sitting there replaying the videos, watching them back and back, and even going in and playing some World of Warcraft to see if that will spark anything, and try to get a real understanding as to what is it that makes a spell feel like a spell. And I realized what really makes a magic spell feel like a spell is the anticipation. So what adds anticipation? Well, animations and time between initiation of the cast and the cast itself, and the ideation of the conflagration of the particles going to insemination, flatulation. Okay, I'm literally just like saying words now. This is where I decided to switch off from using montages to notify and trigger the spells to using normal animation sequences with loops. You know, the same way you would do like a jump, because if you jump and you're hanging in the air for a long time, well, you don't want to end the jump while you're in the air. You have to have that loop. The same applies here. We're doing like a charged thing, so yeah, I want to loop it, baby. This helps to give it that casting feel. Then to add on top of that, I wanted to make it feel more like the player is actually the one who is in control of the spell. It's not just launching off because you pressed a button. So I implemented a cast bar, and the longer you let it cast, the stronger and bigger the spell becomes. But if you want to get a quick cast off, well, you have that option as well. You would just fire the spell off earlier. I think one thing though I want to experiment with is a small slow effect that you get when casting, almost like a concentration thing. Perhaps it will slow you more and more the longer you're actually casting for, just to add some consequential decisions that the players have to make for these spells. But that definitely is going to take some experimenting with, and honestly, I still got some major glitches to deal with right now, because for some reason I can't get the animations to move from one to the other. So if I'm casting one spell and try to cast another spell immediately afterward, it just doesn't transition, and it has to transition into the animation for it to actually work, because the trigger of the animation actually notifies the controller to actually launch the spell. So yeah, you can see how this can be a little bit problematic. It just won't go into the other spell until it's like completely done. I don't know, it's really weird. It's kind of frustrating, but I'll get there somehow. I don't know. God, why? But once I do get that fixed, there's still one more thing I need to work on, which is actually the weapon itself. The magic staff, I haven't quite figured out how I want it to feel. Do I want it to feel a little bit more like a gun? Do I want it to feel more like a magic staff? I don't know. I'm still up in the air about that. So let me know if you got any ideas, please. But I have to say, I'm very excited to get these spells done, because as soon as I do, I can start working on the animations for the next weapons. And if you want to see how I learned and mastered animation in Blender in only 7 days, make sure to click this video here. Okay, love you.